Hello and welcome to another tutorial from the Golden Ribbon. We're looking at the perspective ribbons today, another step in the series. I must apologize for the late posting of this video. I've been preoccupied with some client work and also with my new typeface, which you'll see previewed in this tutorial. My canvas is 1700 by 1700. I have my colors to the right hand side as per usual. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start my first ribbon using the rectangle tool in my toolbox. About this size will do. I've got my align and distribute toolbox open, but you can access it using Ctrl Shift and A or going to Object, Align and Distribute in your file menu. Let's make it smaller. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this now with Ctrl and D. Hold it and carry it down. Use the dropper tool and select the orange. Even though the orange should be the first one, just flip that. Okay. Then making sure last is selected, yellow and then the orange. I'm going to select align top edges of objects to bottom edge of anchor. Good. And this will put them together. Then we're going to duplicate the yellow, carry it down, use the dropper tool with D, select the blue, make sure that the blue is selected, then select the yellow, the last selected is OK. Again, align top edges to the bottom edges of anchor. Lastly, duplicate it one more time with Ctrl and D, press D, dropper tool, use the darker blue, make sure this is selected, then select the blue, and align top edges to bottom anchor. So we have all of our ribbons put together now very nicely. I'm going to scale them down just slightly so that we have them right here. Okay, next I'm going to duplicate them. After selecting all of them, and then I'm going to click on all of them selected. You hold down Shift to select each one of the ribbons, and I'm going to rotate all of them together, and I'm going to rotate it until it is vertical and place it down here. I'm going to squash this a little bit, so with all of them still selected, I'm going to select this arrow here and bring it down. Right. And I think this should do it. Yes, good, this should do it. And then we can move on to actually creating the diagonal here. Now I want this diagonal to be 45 degrees exactly. So I'm going to close this. Now I'm going to drag a guide from this corner. Now if you drag and hold from the ruler from each corner, it will give you a 45-degree angle, and that's precisely what I want. So I'm going to get this guide and put it here, and this leads me to point number 1 when dealing with perspectives in Inkscape. It's good to know when you have an idea of the angle that you're going to be using in order to create the perspective. Guides help you in this way. In the last tutorial we used guides and a known degree value in order to help us with the perspective. So if you do some research on the degree value, you can just use the guides to put them there, and that will help direct you into how to set the perspective. Okay, so first up we have this cut. I want to create a line that's adjacent to this guide. My snaps are on already, so it snaps for me. I'm going to create a triangle. Good. This triangle. Was the triangle created? Let's go again. I think I didn't create the triangle. Let's go again. I've got a mouse that gives me a lot of trouble. And alright, this looks like the triangle is created. Yes, it is. I'm just going to put the triangle in white so we can see what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this triangle once. I'm going to select the blue while holding Shift, Control Shift and minus sign, which is the same thing as going to your path and difference. You see Control Shift and minus sign right there. Alright, I'm going to duplicate it again, apply it for the blue, Control Shift and minus sign, duplicate it once more, apply it for the yellow, Control Shift and minus sign, and lastly for the orange. I think I need to increase this a bit. For the orange, Control Shift and minus sign. Okay, so we can see that the guide has helped us quite a bit. We don't need the guide anymore, so I'm going to hit Control Shift, hit Shift and this button right here, the / and we see that we have, if we zoom in here, we see that we have the angle that we wanted. It's a little bit off, so I'm going to push it out so it matches up much better. Okay, excellent stuff. Alright, so next thing, I'm gonna get these, select all of them. Again, you can do it by holding Shift. Alright, so I'm gonna do, because I difference them, they're no longer rectangles, they're paths, so their raw nodes are exposed. I'm gonna double click, and by double clicking it takes me to the raw nodes or the path editor. Then holding down Shift, I'm gonna create a box, and this box, using my left mouse button and dragging, will select all of the nodes. Because these middle nodes have two nodes overlapping each other, they're not gonna show, but they are selected. And then we're gonna hold down Control and drag them out. And Control ensures that the shape is maintained. Alright. Drag them out about here. And then I'm gonna select everything and just push everything back a bit. Okay, you can even push back a little bit more. You can even reduce the size a bit. Alright. Okay, this looks good. Okay, now we can move on into creating the final piece of this perspective ribbon, which is the perspective ribbons. Okay, we're gonna select these, rotate them once more, join them up, make sure they're joined up as best you can. Okay, now this next tool is also an excellent tool for using. We're going to double click to go to our paths. You notice that they're all rectangles, and we don't want that. We want the raw nodes to show. So we're going to go to Path, Object to Path, or you can hit Control Shift and C. So I'm going to select all these outside nodes again. I'm going to hold Control and drag them out just like we did before. Good. Then I'm going to activate a very useful tool up here, which is the show transformation handles for selected nodes. Now the transformation handles tend to come in just for the objects themselves, but you can actually have them from the individual nodes. So by selecting this, we get the chance to modify the nodes using the transformation handles. What we're going to do now is that we're going to pull all these nodes out proportionally. So you're going to hold Control and you're going to hold Shift, and you have to pull them out proportionally. And when we pull them out, we get this nice look here. I'm going to press S so that we can see what's happening, and you see it gives the impression that the lines are moving outwards from the source at a perspective coming towards the user or the viewer, or wherever it may be. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can just bring them down a little bit. So this is another excellent tool to use when you want to create perspectives by warping and changing the individual nodes using the transformation tool on the nodes. So we've got the perspective going on here. We can move into the styling of this thing. I'm going to create changes into nodes. I much prefer them in nodes. Lift them up a little bit. In fact, no, I'll lift them up. Keep them there. Okay, so now it's really a case about styling what we have. And let's start with the shadows. So the first thing I'm going to do down here, I'm going to hit G for the gradient tool. If you're on a display that's doesn't show all of the tools, you can go down to this arrow and select gradient. I'm going to hold down shift to see that the gradient is straight. Hold on shift, control to see that the gradient is straight. I'm going to drag down. I want the darker color to be at top for this one. So I'm going to go control shift and D. Control shift and F, sorry, to activate my fill and stroke dialog box. Alright, we can see that the alpha is 0. You want to bump this up so the alpha is 255 or 100% opacity. Okay, then we're going to go into HSL, hue, saturation and lightness, and I'm going to drag this down, try to get a reasonable enough gradient. And we're going to apply the same for the rest of these. G, pull up, drag this up, drag this down. G, pull up, drag this down to 100%, drag this down, and lastly G, pull up. I should have pulled up, sorry. Drag this up, drag this down. Good. So you have a nice gradient effect on this. I'm going to apply the same because we already have the gradient effect already from dark to light. I'm going to use from here, and I'm going to flip it round so that the darker side is on this side. The same way, G, let's go to our gradients, flip it round. Select the yellow, hold G, go to our gradients into tools control box, flip it round. There we go, let's see if we can drag it out a little bit more. Just dragging this out beyond. I want it dark but not as dark as what's underneath, just enough. G, down, flip it round. Okay, that looks good. Let's bring this up a bit more. Oops. Oh, is that it? Yeah. Okay, so we have this here, we have our shadows. We're gonna have another gradient here. Good. Oh, we don't have this gradient. I'm gonna move them from the original color to a lighter color now. So let's, in fact, I'm gonna have a three-way gradient on this. I'm gonna pull them out. Good. Now to have a three-way gradient, I'm gonna make sure that G is selected. G is selected. Hold down Control, and on this line I'm gonna double click. That creates a new node for me. I want this node to be the same color here. I want this to be the color of the darkness here. So I'm going to do drop a tool and select. So select the node and select the color. And this last color, I want it to be lighter than the two. I'm going to bring out the alpha. Leave it at that. So as it comes towards the viewer, looks like it's getting lighter. Right. I'm going to apply the same thing. G. Hold down your gradient tool. Bring it out. For the first node, the dropper tool, I'm going to select this dark blue here. Then go back to gradient tool. On this line, we're going to hold Control and double click. That creates a new node. We want this node to be the original color. And then lastly, this last node, we want it to be a lighter version of the blue. So we're going to pull up the lightness. Right. We're going to do the same for this one too. G, pull up the gradient for the yellow. Make sure this node is selected. Hold D for the dropper tool. We're going to select this dark yellow. Then I'm going to go back to G again. Hold Control, double click on this line. Press D again. And D again. And we're going to select the original color. Then go to this last node. Pull up the alpha. So it's 255, or the opacity is 100%. And then pull this lightness value down till you get something convincing. Go to select tool one more time for the orange. So I'm going to select the gradient tool with G. I'm going to pull out and try to pull out in accordance to the direction of the perspective, so that the gradient goes roughly in the middle. This will help the realism of the ribbon. Okay, I'm gonna hold down Control, double click, select the node, press D. Gonna select the dark color. Good. Then go to this one, hold down D. I'm gonna select the original orange. Lastly, go to this one, bring the alpha to 225, or the opacity to 100, increase the lightness until you get something convincing. Press the select tool, let's save this thing, and we're looking really good. It's looking like the ribbon really nicely. Good. So we've created the gradients. Let's move on to the actual shadows themselves. So I'm going to zoom in here. And notice that these are actually above. I'm going to put them below. I'm going to group them and put them below. Can group them by Control and G. Right. And that puts all of them below. Next we're going to create this shadow. And I want the shadow to be even. So I'm just going to draw the line right here with the Bezier tool, which you can find in your tools control box, or you can select B to activate. And the Bezier tools right here. Okay, so we have it right. I'm going to use a black, fill it with black. I'm going to remove the stroke down here. Bring it down a little bit. Bring it below the above. Okay, it's showing a bit on top. And I'm going to reduce the opacity and blur it by about 0.5. Okay, it's blurred by 0.5. I think that's a decent blur. Let's go again. Now this, you can blur this however you wish to. You understand me? This is just personal preference. Going on from here, these values are not static. You can always change them how you wish. Okay, I want the ribbons themselves to have a sort of indent from each other. So I'm going to create a shadow from the edge. And I'm going to bring this shadow in the corner. Let me flip this round. So as the ribbon moves out, it appears that the distance or the curve between them gets larger. Okay. I'm going to select this blue here. Alright, I'm going to use a 0 point, in fact I'm going to use a 1 for this. Good. And then I'm going to put this underneath. Oh, if it doesn't go underneath, try and lift the blue. Lift the blue, worked. Okay. So I'm not going to do this for every ribbon. I'm just going to have the shadow, and I'm going to move it for the orange and yellow. So I'm going to go to the path tool, select the node, drag in the node. That reduces the size of this. Even when you apply the blur filter, you can modify the object just the same. I'm going to lift the orange above it, and I'm going to select this dark orange down here. Oh, dark yellow, my apologies. Pull this in so the it doesn't come so badly. Okay. Alright then. And this looks good. Could even carry down the opacity of it a little bit. Even carry this down a little bit. And carry the opacity down a bit. Okay. We're going to move into creating the highlights. I want a highlight coming across here. So I'm going to use my Bezier tool. And create this long shape here. Then I'm going to hold down the dropper tool for D. I want a white. Oh, I didn't need a dropper tool there, but I still want the white. I'm going to use a blur of 0, a blur of 2. Good. And then I'm going to bring the opacity down. And that gives the ribbon its kind of emboss effect. Duplicate it a little bit and select a black. Reduce the opacity a little less. Alright then. And that helps to create the bend for the ribbon. So you have the black next to the white highlight. Really does help. So we have our highlight. We can add a little extra blur right here. Use a black. The opacity down. Slight blur. Drag it out a bit. Then use the gradient tool. And then just hold Control and so as bring it back into play. Alright, no more than that. Okay, looks really good. So we have our perspective ribbons. Let's go ahead and create, let's go ahead and add our icons. Okay, add the explanations also. Let's scroll them down a little bit. Okay, now with a design like this, you can very easily add information on these lines right here, and then information going down. There's really not much of a limit to it, but I'm just going to create the icons here just to help for the spicing of this thing up. Let's go and add the next set of icons. And just add them down here. Okay, and let me just duplicate this. bring it to the top, stretch you out, and type perspective. What color did I have it in now? I think it was the blue. Yep, the perspective. Can't spell. Perspective ribbons. Give it a neat underline. So orange. Bringing the opacity up a bit. And then I'm going to use the golden ribbon logo. Place it right here. Duplicate this. Create the P. It was a common P. What? Yep, it was a common P. Bring it into the distance. And yeah. And there we. Let's even this up a bit. There we have it. Your perspective ribbons. So tips for this one. The transformation tools help with the skewing and deformation, and also guides help with your perspective. It's key to do a little bit of research. It helps you out to see what angles that your perspective is on, and then you can use your guides to shape it for you. Good. So I hope you like this tutorial. I hope it helped you. Again, if you want the icons, you can check the blog post for it. The typeface, however, this time around, I can't give it out because it's not complete. This is the typeface I'm working on. You can see it's getting places, but it's just taking a long time to do the styles. I have italic and the bolds to do, and some other weights that I have for them. So if you be patient, you'll get them. Also, the colors will also be in the tutorials. Good. So get up and design yourself a new dawn. Later.